Okay. For this video, I just wanted to discuss with you guys the way that the government actually, at least a part of it, currently forms laws. There's, again, this really, most of the stuff is not in any way, shape, or form related to how it was discussed in school. At least not how I was taught it. Although, it's in honors classes, and I had really great teachers, and they did at least give me some of a preview of this. And that is that in, because they went beyond the textbooks. And that is that laws are formed via omnibus bills being passed, okay, and voted upon. Omnibus bills being large conglomerate pieces of law, which include rules often from a pretty large variety of subjects that are therefore put into one bill, which this one bill might very well be at least 200 pages. Some of them are 5, 6. I've heard of it 1,200 pages of one of these bills, and hence the concept of the Read the Bills Act, which was founded by one of the libertarians, and that I got into on another video. These pieces of legislation have a lot of different, some call them pork barrel spending, some people call them add-ins, some people, call them favors traded in, some people call them wonderful bits of, rules and provisions that really help a lot of people, but otherwise wouldn't have gotten through. I think the actual term for them is earmarks, okay? Which doesn't sit well with these ears that I don't really need my fingers to help wiggle. Therefore, I have to say that that's one of the elements of it. Another one is that they always, at this point, go back to pieces of legislation in terms of these omnibus bills that are cycling through committees and subcommittees that, and this is before it actually goes up in general for a full-on vote. Although at times when it doesn't get voted approved, it goes back through all over again, and that actually also frequently happens. And that's why one of the things that frequently happens with pieces of legislation that they kind of want to make seem like it's going to happen, and they really want their constituents to think that they're voting in favor of it, is that they put it through an endless round of referrals to other committees and subcommittees, as opposed to actually bringing it to the full floor of either the House or the Senate, or both. And in some cases, it's pretty deliberate that they will put in elements in one house and then deliberately so that it'll get kicked out later in conference between the two houses. And in some cases, that's actually a good thing, because it'll give each part room to wiggle with the powers that be knowing that it's just plain ridiculous, both of these little bits. But in many cases, it's just plain a stonewalling tactic to make sure that nothing actually gets passed, and to send them through another endless round of, more and more committees and subcommittees to make sure that it never sees light of day. And between, and then of course, and also keep in mind that in terms of the actual writing of these proposals, um, the most of the senators and congresspersons don't actually write their own proposals in any way, shape, or form. I'm not even talking about the concept of the corporations writing them and basically handing them and saying, here, go, make this happen. Okay, be it behind the scenes or not so behind the scenes, okay? I'm also talking about the teams of, or shall I say, the staffers of said congresspersons and senators that advise them on different areas of policy. These aides and policy advisors are, in many cases, the people that actually write the real legislation, form the real wording all throughout, and this is another problem in terms of when you talk about hidden spending, is that all of these people have to be paid, okay? And this is also a matter of entrenched power and lack of term limits and lack of a real accountability, because when you're talking about, in general, a freshman senator or a freshman congressperson, first time in, they won't have huge advisory teams. You're talking about maybe 2 to 3 people, sometimes 5 or 6. But by the time that you're dealing with, and I'm talking about national level, by the time you're getting to someone that's been serving for 20 or 30 years, you may well be referring to a staff of advisors, policy analysts for the senator or congressperson that might very well have 30 people in it. And therefore, it's a huge problem to me. It's a huge issue, because it really makes you question the concept of who are you voting for? Beyond the concept of election integrity and the fact that your vote might be flipped, or that you might be stripped from the register voter registration list in states that don't have same-day registration, or have your vote flipped in the machine, or have your party affiliations flipped in a state to another party when you're trying to vote in a primary in a closed primary state. The fact remains is that when you have staffs this large that are acting as advisors, it makes you really wonder, what exactly is your senator or a congressperson doing? Or again, who are you voting for? Are you, and I don't think many people are aware that in terms of their incumbent senator or congressperson, that in theory they're voting for one person. In reality, they're voting for that one person as the face of a whole bunch of other people who are actually, for the most part, doing like 99% of the work in terms of actual policy stuff. So to me, it almost becomes a matter of they're the face, okay, and even without all the lobbying going on, they're still at best the lead party that you see, as opposed to the actual team that's behind them. Another distinct possibility in terms of some of them, that at times I question how with it they are at this point, mentally. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying that, I believe it was the late Strom Thurmond. I really question whether the man, had an issue I think he was still serving when he was 90. Granted, there are some people that are 90 that are perfectly with it, but I heard the man and I kind of questioned that. So, and he was known for, by that point in his career, frequently falling asleep during meetings and even during votes. And at times I saw this kind of thing on C-SPAN. So I know that it wasn't just people making reports that were just odd, that were not happening. I saw the man snoring. So, when things like, and these were when policy debates were going on the Senate, on the floor where he was supposedly serving. And no, this was not like one of those late night sessions. This wasn't later than 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So, when you're talking then about how bad and how big this thing is, you have to again question who's running things, what is actually written in terms of what's happening with our laws versus what should be happening. Shalom. Thanks for watching.